The worst part wasn't that she walked in. It was that I didn't want her to leave. It started on a Tuesday afternoon, one of those ordinary, blurry days when time felt like wet paint on a wall. I'd just come back from my last class, kicked off my boots, peeled my shirt off, and turned toward the closet to grab something more comfortable. Our dorm room was always too warm this time of year, even with the window cracked. I didn't hear the key. Didn't hear the door. Until I heard her voice. Oh my God. I'm so sorry. Her hand shot up over her eyes, but not before I saw it, the quick flicker, the freeze, that moment she stared just a second too long. I felt my breath catch. I reached for my hoodie like it could save me from the awkwardness now hovering in the air. But she didn't run. Not right away. I thought you had class till 4, she said, standing in the doorway like her feet were stuck in cement. It got cancelled. I couldn't look at her. My pulse throbbed in my ears, too loud. She took a step in. Still shielding her eyes. Still, not leaving. I really didn't mean to. It's fine, it's whatever. I'm dressed now, you looked beautiful. The silence that followed was brutal that I blinked. Then turned. Slowly, she wasn't covering her eyes anymore, and in that moment, everything I thought I knew about us, about her, about me, shifted. Something cracked open between us. Something I'd kept buried for far too long. Let me know when you're ready for the next chapter. The next morning, everything felt louder. Her coffee mug clinked harder against the counter, the bathroom door creaked longer when it opened, and the silence between us stretched wider than it ever had. I watched her from my bed, pretending to scroll through my phone, but my eyes kept drifting toward her. She moved around the room like nothing had happened, like she hadn't told me I looked beautiful while I stood half undressed and vulnerable. But something had changed. I could feel it in the way she didn't meet my eyes, the way her shoulders tightened when she passed me, like she was scared of the space between us and what it meant now. I didn't know how to start the conversation, didn't know what words were safe. What did you even say after something like that? She broke the silence first, voice casual but too careful. Do you want to go out for dinner tonight? Like, off campus? I'm craving Thai. I looked up slowly, searching her face. She wasn't looking at me, she was tying her hair back, her fingers fumbling with the scrunchie. Sure, I said, heart thudding. Yeah. That sounds good. She smiled, small and quick, then grabbed her backpack and left without another word. And still, I couldn't stop thinking about how her eyes had lingered yesterday. How her voice had softened when she said beautiful. I spent the rest of the day drifting through classes I barely heard, chewing on what that moment meant. What she meant. Maybe it was just a slip. Maybe she didn't mean it like that, or maybe she did. Dinner felt normal at first. We walked to the restaurant in the slow, sticky dusk, our hands brushing once, twice, before both of us shoved them into our jacket pockets like it hadn't happened. She talked about her psych class. I nodded and tried not to stare at the way her lips moved when she spoke. Then, halfway through our noodles, she set her chopsticks down and looked up. Really looked. Are you mad at me? She asked. I blinked, caught off guard. No. Why would I be? Because of, yesterday. Her voice dropped, quiet like a secret. I swallowed. I'm not mad. Then what are you? I paused. Confused. She nodded slowly, almost like she expected that. Then she leaned in, elbows on the table, voice just above a whisper. I meant it, you know. What I said. My chest tightened. I looked away. I don't know how to feel about that. You don't have to feel anything, she said gently. I just wanted you to know. But the thing was, I did feel something. I'd been feeling something for a long time. I just never let myself name it. Never gave it room. On the walk back, we didn't talk much. But when we reached our dorm, she hesitated at the door, fingers on the handle. Do you want to watch something? She asked. I nodded. We didn't sit like we usually did. This time, we were close. Not touching, but close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from her. Every breath, every small movement, felt louder in that space. She didn't make a move. I didn't either. But when the movie ended, she looked over at me, her voice low. I'm not trying to mess this up. I think about you. All the time. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I just looked at her, eyes wide, chest rising and falling faster than it should. She didn't lean in. She didn't kiss me. She just looked back, waiting. Respecting the pause. And somehow, that meant everything. That night, I barely slept. I stared at the ceiling long after she'd gone quiet in her bed across the room, the soft sound of her breathing the only thing anchoring me to the moment. Her words echoed over and over in my head, I think about you. All the time. It wasn't like I hadn't imagined this before. I had, too many times, in passing daydreams I forced myself to forget. But hearing it from her, in her voice, with that kind of softness, it shook something loose inside me I didn't know I was holding back. I kept wondering what she meant exactly. What she wanted. What she saw in me. Because for the longest time, I'd convinced myself that I didn't deserve something like that. That people like her didn't look at people like me in that way. But now I wasn't so sure. The next morning, the air between us felt different, not heavy, but charged, like static before a storm. She was brushing her hair in front of the mirror, humming softly to herself, and I couldn't stop watching the way the morning light touched her cheekbones. She caught my gaze in the mirror and smiled, not coy, not teasing, just honest. And I smiled back. For once, it didn't feel like I had to hide how I looked at her. She tossed me a granola bar before heading out. Don't skip breakfast again, she said with a wink, and the door clicked behind her before I could think of a response. The day moved slowly. I couldn't focus on anything. I reread the same paragraph in my textbook 5 times and still had no clue what it said. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart jumped, hoping it was her. Around 3, she texted, *movie night again? But this time, my pick, I replied instantly, *deal. But I get snacks, when I got back to the room, she was already there, sprawled across her bed in leggings and an oversized hoodie that I was pretty sure used to be mine. The movie was some indie drama I'd never heard of, quiet and emotional, the kind of thing that left you feeling raw and full all at once. Halfway through, she shifted closer. I didn't move away. Her thigh rested against mine, warm and steady. I held my breath. She didn't say anything. Neither did I. But neither of us moved. When the credits rolled, the room was dark except for the glow of the laptop screen. I could feel her watching me, even though I was afraid to meet her eyes. Slowly, she reached for my hand. Her fingers brushed against mine, hesitant at first, then more certain. My breath hitched. She held on. I looked at her then, really looked, and there was something so open in her expression it made my chest ache. Like she'd been waiting for me to see her this whole time. And I did. I saw her. And maybe, just maybe, she saw me too. Neither of us spoke. The silence was thick, not awkward, but meaningful, like every unspoken word had finally settled between us and we didn't need to rush it. She squeezed my hand once before letting go, and even though the contact ended, the warmth stayed. I lay there long after she drifted off, staring at the ceiling again, but this time I wasn't filled with doubt. This time, I was filled with something else. Something softer. Something scarier. Hope. I woke up the next morning to the smell of coffee and the sound of quiet humming. She was sitting at her desk, hair still a little damp from her shower, one leg tucked beneath her as she scrolled on her laptop. The sunlight spilled across her back, and for a second, I just watched her, watched the way she sipped from her mug like the world wasn't spinning a little faster now. She turned, like she felt me watching, and smiled so softly it made my chest hurt. "Morning," she said. Just one word, but it held so much more than it used to. I sat up, rubbing the sleep from my eyes, heart beating faster than it should for something so simple. "You always this cheerful at 8 a.m.? I mumbled. "Only when you don't sleep through it," she teased, and I laughed, maybe a little too loudly. She offered me the second cup she'd made, and our fingers brushed again, this time, intentionally. No apologies. No flinching. Just that small touch that buzzed all the way up my arm. We didn't talk about what happened the night before. We didn't need to. The shift between us was unspoken, but it was real. It followed us through the rest of the week, quiet smiles across the dining hall table, her knee brushing mine under shared study sessions, the way she looked at me like I was something she was figuring out and falling for all at once. But the closer we got, the more nervous I became. Because part of me still didn't believe this was happening. That someone like her could want someone like me. That this wasn't some passing phase or curiosity. And even though she never gave me a reason to doubt her, the fear crept in anyway. Friday night, she invited me to a party. A small one, mostly people from her psych class, and I could tell she wanted me to say yes. I hesitated, fingers frozen over my phone screen. Crowds made me anxious. And this thing, this us, felt so delicate, like the wrong move would shatter it. But I said yes. Because she smiled like it meant something. We walked over together, shoulders bumping under the same umbrella. The apartment was packed, dimly lit, music thumping just loud enough to rattle your chest. She introduced me to people I didn't know, and I nodded, smiled, tried to focus on their names but kept glancing at her. She looked so confident, so effortless in a room like this. I felt out of place, but she kept looking at me, checking in with those small glances that grounded me. After an hour, I needed air. I stepped outside onto the small balcony, pulling my jacket tighter around me. A minute later, I heard the door slide open behind me. "Too much?" she asked gently. I nodded. "A little." She stepped beside me, arms resting on the railing. "You don't have to come to these things, you know." "I wanted to," I said, and it was the truth. "For you." She turned to me, eyes wide, like the words meant more than I realized. "You don't have to do things for me," she said softly. "Just, with me. If you want to." I looked at her then, really looked, and the way she was watching me, open, nervous, hopeful, it did something to me. "I do," I whispered. "I want to." There was a long pause. Then she reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, and left her fingers there, resting just against my cheek. "Then let's stop being scared," she said. And I don't know who leaned in first. Maybe we both did. Maybe it didn't matter. Because when our lips met, everything else faded, the noise, the party, the fear. It was gentle, warm, real. And when she pulled back just enough to whisper, I've wanted to do that for so long. I believed her. I wanted to say something back, something that could match how full my heart suddenly felt. But all I could do was kiss her again. And this time, she smiled against my mouth. The next few days passed in a blur, but not the kind that slips by unnoticed. Every moment with her felt heightened, like the volume had been turned up on the world. We weren't calling it anything, not yet, but there was something unmistakably different in the way she looked at me now, in the way her hand would brush mine and stay there a little longer, in the way she leaned into me when we laughed, in the way her eyes searched mine like she was trying to memorize something. We didn't talk about labels, or plans, or what this meant for the future. We didn't need to. Not yet. For now, it was enough that she reached for me first. That she stayed close. That she kissed me goodnight when the room was dark and quiet, when her voice was soft and low, just for me. But in the background of all the softness, something colder started to creep in. I could feel it late at night, when the lights were off and she stared at the ceiling instead of falling asleep. When I caught her flinching every time her phone buzzed. When she'd go quiet after a call from home. I didn't want to push, but it was there, under the surface. A tension she didn't have words for yet. One night, as we lay side by side in the dark, our fingers barely touching between the beds, I whispered, "You okay?" She didn't answer right away. Then, quietly, my mom called. Again. She keeps asking if I'm seeing anyone. She's very specific about what kind of someone that should be. I turned toward her, my heart aching at the pain wrapped in her voice. "Do you want to tell her?" Another long pause. Then, "I don't know. I want to. But I also don't want to lose her." I reached across the space between us and took her hand. "You don't owe anyone your truth until you're ready. Not even her." She squeezed my fingers, hard. "But you deserve someone who can love you out loud." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "So do you." After that, she held my hand like she was afraid of letting go. And I let her, because I was afraid too. Afraid that this, whatever this was, could break under pressure. That we were still too new, too unspoken. But I also knew something else, something stronger. I was falling for her. Not just in the small, sweet ways. But in the terrifying, consuming kind of way where you see all of someone, their fear, their hesitation, their hope, and love them harder for it. I was falling for the way she smiled with her eyes before her lips caught up. For the way she played with the string on her hoodie when she was nervous. For the way she looked at me like I made her brave, even when she couldn't say it. That weekend, she asked me if I wanted to go with her to the art exhibit downtown. I said yes before she even finished the sentence. We spent hours walking through halls filled with color and silence. She pointed out every piece that reminded her of something, a song, a memory, a moment. I mostly just watched her. The way she lit up around beauty. The way she laughed when I guessed the titles wrong on purpose. When we left, it was raining. She didn't run. Instead, she stood there on the sidewalk, arms stretched out, face tilted up toward the sky, soaking it all in. And then she turned to me, water dripping down her cheeks like tears that didn't hurt. "This is the first time I've felt free in a long time," she said. I stepped toward her. "Then let's stay here for a minute." She nodded. And we stood there, just two girls under a gray sky, letting the rain wash away everything we didn't have words for yet. Monday started out normal, until it wasn't. She wasn't at the room when I got back from class, which wasn't unusual. But hours passed, and still no sign of her. No text. No missed call. Just quiet. I told myself not to worry, that she was probably with friends, maybe stuck in the library, maybe just needed space. But as the sky darkened and our room stayed empty, the pit in my stomach got heavier. I stared at my phone until the screen dimmed. When she finally walked through the door, it was nearly midnight. Her hoodie was soaked, her hair stuck to her cheeks, and something in her eyes looked broken. I sat up instantly. "Where were you?" She didn't answer right away. Just kicked off her shoes and stood there, dripping on the floor, breathing like she'd been running. "I went home," she finally said. Her voice was quiet, but tight. "I needed to talk to my mom." My heart stopped. "You told her?" She nodded slowly, then shook her head. "I tried. I got as far as, 'There's someone I care about,' and she cut me off. Started talking about how I should focus on school, how dating was a distraction, how," her voice cracked, "how she raised me better than that." I stood and crossed the room, not sure if I should touch her, if she wanted space or closeness. But she didn't pull away when I wrapped my arms around her. She just sank into me like her whole body had been holding something too heavy for too long. "I'm sorry," I whispered, not knowing what else to say. She didn't even know, she murmured against my shoulder. She didn't even know and still managed to make me feel like I was wrong. We stood there in the quiet, the only sound the slow drip of rain off her clothes. I led her to sit, pulled a blanket around us, and held her until her shaking stopped. "I'm not ashamed of you," she said after a long while, her voice small. "I just don't know how to be brave every day." My chest ached with how much I loved her in that moment. "You don't have to be brave every day," I said. "You just have to come back." And you did. She leaned her head against mine. "I don't want to hide. Not from you. Not from myself." I kissed her forehead. "Then we don't. We take our time, and we move at our pace, not theirs." Her eyes filled again, but this time with something else, relief. "I thought you'd be mad. Or tired of this." I shook my head slowly. "No. I'm here. I'm still here." And I meant it. All of it. Even with the fear. Even with the weight of her silence and the burden of the things she couldn't say out loud yet. Because this wasn't just a crush. It wasn't just a kiss or a moment or a phase. It was something real. Something raw. Something worth holding on to, even when it hurt. That night, we curled up in her bed, facing each other in the dark. Her fingers found mine again, and for the first time in days, she slept with a steady rhythm in her breath. And I stayed awake just a little longer, watching her, making silent promises. That I wouldn't walk away. That I wouldn't let the world make her feel small. That this thing between us, fragile as it was, mattered. More than anything. The following week moved slower than the rest, like everything had shifted a few degrees off balance. We still shared the same bed some nights, still watched dumb reality shows with our legs tangled and half a blanket between us, still reached for each other in the quiet, but something about her had gone quieter. Like she was walking around carrying a bruise no one else could see. She smiled when she needed to. Laughed when people were around. But alone, she drifted more. I'd catch her staring out the window too long or biting her lip when she thought I wasn't looking. And every time I reached for her, she came back, but not all the way. Like part of her was still stuck in that moment at home, with words left unsaid and a heart too tender to carry the weight of rejection. I didn't push. But I stayed close. One night, we were lying in bed, both pretending to scroll our phones, the room dim and quiet except for the soft hum of someone playing music in the room next door. I shifted, tucked my head against her shoulder. She sighed into my hair like it was the first deep breath she'd taken all day. "Do you ever think this will get easier?" she asked suddenly, voice barely audible. "Not every day," I answered honestly. "But some days already feel lighter than the ones before." She didn't respond at first. Just traced small circles against my arm with her fingertip. I hate that loving you feels like a secret I have to guard all the time. My throat tightened. I wanted to tell her she didn't have to hide, that it was okay now, that the world would catch up to us eventually, but I couldn't lie. Because sometimes love meant walking around with armor on. Sometimes it meant picking your moments. Sometimes it meant not being able to kiss her when you wanted to, not holding her hand in public, not saying this is mine out loud. And that hurt. I lifted my head, looking at her in the soft darkness. You don't have to protect me from how hard this is, I whispered. I'd rather hurt with you than pretend it doesn't matter. Her eyes welled, but she didn't blink them away. She let them stay. You make me feel safe. Even when I'm scared. I leaned forward and kissed her, slow and steady, like a promise. She pulled me closer, arms around my waist, breath catching between us. There was no urgency. No rush. Just us, holding on to each other in the middle of everything we couldn't fix overnight. And for a moment, that was enough. Afterward, she rested her forehead against mine. I want to be the kind of person who loves loudly, she whispered. But I'm not there yet. That's okay, I said. I hear you just fine. And I did. Even in the silence. Even in the pauses. Because her love was in the way she looked at me when she thought I wasn't watching. It was in the way she made sure I always had coffee before class. In the way she held my hand under the covers, even when the world outside wouldn't understand. So I held her a little tighter, breathed her in, and closed my eyes. Hoping tomorrow would be one of the lighter days. It rained again the morning everything changed, not in a dramatic way, just soft and steady, like the sky needed to let go of something it had been holding too long. She stood by the window, her mug cradled in both hands, wearing one of my sweatshirts without even thinking about it now. I watched her from the bed, chin resting on my knees, and something about the way she moved, calm, quiet, no longer shrinking into herself, told me something had settled inside her. She turned and caught me watching. I talked to her again, she said. Her voice was steady, but I felt the ripple it sent through the room. I sat up straighter. Your mom? She nodded. I didn't plan it. It just happened. She asked about you, actually. I guess she saw a photo on my desk. And I told her. Everything. My breath stopped. And? There was a beat of silence. Then she walked over, sat beside me, and set the mug down. She didn't understand. Not at first. But she didn't hang up either. Her eyes met mine, wet but clear. She said it'll take time. But she still loves me. I reached for her hand without thinking, curling my fingers around hers. I'm so proud of you. She looked down, blinking quickly. I was so scared, she whispered. I thought saying it out loud would break something I couldn't fix. I leaned in, pressed my forehead to hers. But it didn't. No, she said, her voice small but sure. It didn't. And somehow, that small truth made everything else feel possible. We spent the afternoon wrapped in each other, not rushing toward anything, just existing. She kissed me like she was finally letting herself want it without guilt. I kissed her back like I was afraid we'd never have this moment again. But we did. Again and again. Days became weeks, and things got quieter but stronger. She started holding my hand in the hallway. Started sitting closer in public spaces. Started saying my name like it meant something permanent. She still had hard days, and so did I. But we talked now. Fought softly. Loved fiercely. It wasn't perfect. It didn't have to be. One night, I came back from class late, tired and cold, and found her sitting on my bed with a candle lit and my favorite playlist humming in the background. "You okay?" I asked, setting down my bag. She nodded, then stood, walked over, and wrapped her arms around me. "I just missed you." I hugged her back, heart full. "I'm here." She looked up, eyes searching mine. "Do you ever think about how it started? That first day?" I laughed gently. "You mean when you walked in on me half naked and nearly had a heart attack?" She grinned. "Exactly that." I shook my head. "Yeah. I think about it all the time." She tilted her head. "If you could go back, would you change it?" I looked at her, really looked, and felt everything we'd survived, everything we'd built, press into my chest like a second heartbeat. Not a single thing. And when she kissed me, it wasn't just soft or sweet, it was certain. The kind of kiss that made you forget how afraid you once were. The kind that told me we'd come a long way from stolen glances and silences filled with doubt. We were here. Still learning, still loving, still holding on to something that started with an accident but became the most honest thing in either of our lives. If you're listening, maybe you know what that's like, to feel unseen, unsure, like love isn't meant for someone like you. But I promise you, it is. It always has been. And sometimes, it starts with the wrong moment at the right time. Sometimes, it starts when someone walks in. And stays.